Right, we're recording, so
Awesome.
going to be some great times. Okay.
Nice.
See, we're doing the YouTube thing. We're doing the clap at the start.
That sounded so clean.
Right, okay. Hi, everyone. So I saw a video by Noah Swore and Dylan Miller, and it was the top 10 Cubas of all time. And I was like, wow, wouldn't that be so good to do, but just for UK? So I enlisted the help of Jake Brown, who has basically done all of the effort and prep for this video for me. And here we are. That's what this video is going to be. It's going to be the top 10 Cubas of top 10 UK Cubas of all time. So I'll let Jake introduce himself and then we'll get started.
Yeah, cool. Hi guys. So if you don't know me, I run the YouTube channel Piece by Piece. I am currently 19th in the world for 3x3 single with a 3.91. And yeah, I'm somewhat of an all-rounder. So I feel like I'm vaguely qualified to comment on all these people because I know a lot of them. And yeah, this stuff really interests me. So we've put together a load of statistics and different things that we can test people by. So yeah, we looked at a lot of the same things as Noah and Dylan took into account. So there was sum of ranks, single and average, and also Kinch, both sort of all-rounding metrics. We looked at records. So obviously when looking at top 10 Cubas in the world, you're mainly looking at world records, but for the UK we have UK NRs, but then European records and world records that are steps above that. So we also sorted by the most world records as well as just most records in general.
Yeah.
And then
I
same
think
thing
that's something to note. Like we had to consider that how to weight world, continental and national records.
Yeah.
Whereas for top 10, like for overall
Absolutely.
top 10 Cubas, you can kind of just disregard anything below world record.
Yeah.
So that's just like another, I guess, like aspect of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's definitely examples where that'll come up in our rankings that I think we have differing opinions. So
yeah,
that will lead to some great discussions. Yeah, in a similar vein, we've also considered medals, podiums. So obviously UKC podiums are quite big things for, within the UK, but then we've also got Euros and Worlds podiums. So we've got things like most medals in total and most gold medals and major podiums, that sort of thing. And yeah, a list of like UK Cubas who have got world records or European records. And also just vibes, to be honest, because again, like Noah and Dylan said, you've got to take into account things that stats can't measure as well, like things like method development. There's one person in particular I think we're going to talk about quite a bit who that applies to.
Nice bit of foreshadowing there.
Yeah. And yeah, just sort of vibes in general. It's not all stats based. So hopefully we've covered enough bases here.
Yeah, hope so. But if you want to disagree with any of our rankings, then the comment section, go wild. If the comment section doesn't deteriorate into some debate, I'm going to be disappointed. So
yeah,
that is the point of this video, really.
We're putting our opinions out there. Yeah,
absolutely.
Roast us if you want, but this is what we think.
Yeah. So we're going to start with some honorable mentions. We did start with some special shout outs, but then that recording had some fails towards the end. So we're going to take out the bit that was good. We got Jake giving some excellent analysis on the extra mentions, and now we're going to go to honorable mentions.
So we're going to cut to that first tier now.
Yeah. 2 tiers of honorable mentions, and Jake's going to go first on the second tier of honorable mentions.
Yeah. We just have a shout out tier first. So yeah, a handful of people just to very quickly mention to give you an idea of what we're on about. So the first person is Chudge, Callum Hellsjep, who for quite a while was the only UK competitor to have a 5-blind mean. And he had 6 or 7, I want to say, before anyone else got 1. So that's pretty cool. He was the first complete profile of the UK. He also has a 3 European Championship podiums, including a win, which was in Four Blind in 2014. So that was pretty cool. And he was quite high because of things like that. He was quite high on Summer Ranks and Kinch back in the day. So Chudge definitely has the sort of records and like major podiums stats that we're looking for. Then we have people like Ben Stokes, who for a while has been really high on the sort of all-rounding tables, the Summer Ranks and the Kinch. Has got, quite a collection of medals, a handful of records, but nothing like super like standing out. He's made Euros finals for 3 blind, but not had any Euros podiums or anything like that. But Ben's got like longevity on his side. He's been at the top of his game for quite a while, which is another thing we're going to take into consideration. And then also another thing I think we're going to talk about is recency bias, because obviously we're talking about the greatest cubers of all time. Obviously we've got quite a lot of different eras to pick from, but objectively, someone being like the best cuber in the UK right now is better than the best cuber in the UK in 2015.
Yeah.
Because things are just more competitive now. So someone like Danny Morgan, who like just a few weeks ago, I think, as of recording this, got to second in the UK for Summer Ranks average, even though he's only just got there, and is still improving. He obviously has like quite a lot of different stuff on some of the other people we're going to be talking about, because just to get there, his results have to be better than a lot of people's in the past. So those are the kind of things we're looking at. And I do also, I know Ed's going to laugh at this, I do also want to give one quick shout out before we move on to the actual honourable mentions to Chris Wall, who I'm sure probably very few of you have heard of, but he's one of only 4 UK competitors ever to get a world's podium. He came 3rd in Megaminx at the 2013 World Championship with, I think, a 53 average. That was NR by a solid couple of seconds at the time. And he actually tied the average for 2nd place, but was only 3rd on single. And that's literally it. He had like a few NRs in Mega. And other than that, he's not got a particularly interesting like results or whatever, but it's worth mentioning that only 3 other people other than Chris got world's podiums from the UK. So shout out to Chris as well.
Love that. Yeah, I mean, look, I only laugh because like I had no idea who this guy was before you like from like, oh, this is I've been going through all the podiums, all the stats, and I also do. I think I should get a shout out because I'm on the documents at the Euros podium.
Yeah,
I guess
we're very qualified to be making these kind of videos
at an event. Doesn't make you one of the top 10 cubers of all time, but
true.
I think I saw myself and I was like, wow, no way. But I mean, I actually need to get up this list because this is like what we're going off, and it's just right. Okay, so we're back, and thanks Jake for that. Good stuff.
Nice.
So now we're going to go on to honourable mentions, and I actually have some now.
Absolutely.
I've actually inputted into this. I'm getting my list up.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So we're going to start. I think we're going to start with someone. The only person we both have as an honourable mention, right?
Yeah.
That's who we're going to start with. So go ahead.
Okay. So first up, we've got Nicholas Archer, or Narcher, if you will. So Narcher is, I think, currently 2nd in the world for one-handed, but he had 2.
Yes, average. Yeah.
2 world records.
Back to back.
Yeah. Back to back, and the first sub-7 average, which
8.
I had the honour of judging, which was very nice.
First sub-8, not sub-7.
Okay. So the first 7 average. I don't know about one-handed. I was there as well. Like, what are we doing? Clearly, was not paying enough attention. I just saw the number 7. I was like, yep, under that.
Too fast.
So yeah. Ultimately, he's broken a very big, one-handed record there, and has got 2 European podiums, both third place at 2022 and 2024. Also a UKC win at 3x3.
Yep, overall in 3x3.
So I think Narch is someone who, if we'd put it on the top 10, it would be a respectable choice. But I think there's just not much else other than 3x3 going on. So
yeah, he definitely has the recency bias in his favor. And it's also worth saying that his first world record was like 8:03 or something like that average. And then it was his second world record that was the sub 8.
Yeah.
So he broke his own world record, and it was the first one-handed world record, well, first any world record that was set with Rue and then broken with Rue again. So
that's an interesting stat.
It is, it's very commendable. Until then, it was sort of alternating between Rue and Seathorpe for the OH world records. But yeah, I think that was quite a big thing when it happened. A lot of people were glad to see Rue sort of still consistently at the top, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I didn't know that about the 2 consecutive Rue world records.
First time ever.
And didn't even make the top 10. I mean, that is just unbelievable stuff.
Well, that shows you just how good the UK is, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you want to go next for the next?
So this is someone that I've given an honourable mention to that Ed hasn't. I would like to talk about Ryan Eckersley. I think, apart from being just one of the funniest people that the world has ever seen, he has just been super, super dominant in big blind recently. He's been pretty much the only top big blinder in the UK at the minute. He is currently, or certainly has been recently, third in the world for 5-blind single, which is ER. He's had tons of ERs recently. His first ever ER was 5-blind mean, and that was his first official 5-blind mean. It was a 422, something like that. And that was, I remember when that happened because I was at a different comp to where it happened, and people were on Discord in VC filming Ryan's final attempt, and everyone at this other comp was gathered around the phone watching, and we had a massive cheer when he got it. So that was really cool to see. He's also had ERs in 4-blind, and a couple of European Championship podiums as well. But I think sort of similar case to Narcher here. He's got a niche, which is big blind, and Narcher's niche is OH.
Yeah.
So I think as impressive as his results in big blind are, he's not as high on things like summer ranks. And again, it's only really post-pandemic that Ryan has really got to the top of his game. So I think that's why he's still an honourable mention for me.
Yeah, I think the other thing worth mentioning is this is something I've considered quite a bit. Is in Noah and Dylan's video, they had a ranking of events, 3x3's S tier, and then 2x2 Pyraminx is and obviously big blind is not a high competitive, and that is not taking away from anything. It's just certain events are more competitive than others.
Yeah, absolutely. That is definitely a big factor because Narch, especially becoming 3x3 UK champion.
Yeah, it's that's the top UK.
The most competitive thing, yeah. Whereas big blind, Ryan hasn't really had any competition for his NRs or, UKC wins or all of that in the last 3 years. So,
but again, that's not to take away from anything. It's just, kind of.
Of course, yeah.
To, it's just another way that we're ranking stuff, basically.
Yeah.
So, and that ties into my next honourable mention, which is James Alonso. So he UK champion last time, was he?
Yep. Yeah. Currently reigning UK champion, and also in 2022 as well.
Yeah. So two UK championships. First UK sub 6 current UKNR holder, and been dominant in 3x3 in the UK for a couple of years now, you'd probably say. And again, it's all the same things as Narcha, really, in terms of recency bias. But there is dominance in 3x3 there, and also 2x2 to a
he's got extent. 2x2 joint 2x2 NR average right now as well.
Yeah. So
is it joint or is it just?
I think maybe he might have it now. I mean,
he's definitely got
There's not it's not like he's super far ahead of everyone else in 2x2 like he is in the same way as 3x3, but it's worth mentioning because obviously 2x2 is quite a big event as well.
Yeah.
So I think Jalonzo for the 3x3 and 2x2 achievements gets an honourable mention.
And I think because 3x3 and 2x2 are sort of the more competitive events, I think if he can sort of keep improving and stay at the top of his game like he has been for the last couple of years, which I have no doubt that he will. But if he can do that, if we were to make this video again in like 2 or 3 years' time, I think he'd definitely be more in contention on this list, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Do you want to do your next one?
Yes. So I'm honestly surprised that Ed hasn't got this person in his honourable mentions, but there we are. It'll spark a debate.
This one.
Yeah, I would say this person would be my number 11. I think they would like the next closest person I was considering putting in my top 10, but didn't quite make it, and that is Aidan Granger. And this is where I can feel the controversy coming, because I think a lot of people would say, especially after his recent Megaminx world record single, that Aidan deserves to be top 10. I think similar sort of thing to Jalonzo. Give it like another year or two, because he's clearly not getting worse. He's still at the top of his game. He is the current European champion. He's got that world record. When he said it himself that he thought world records were getting harder and he wasn't sure he was going to be able to get it anymore, but he has. And of course, he's now, I think he's just dropped out of the top 10 like last weekend or something, but he was 10th in the world for a 3x3 single as well, with 369, the current UKNR, which is obviously extremely impressive. And I think depending on how this upcoming World Championship goes, I know Aidan's going, and certainly I think is on the cards for Megaminx podium, if not potentially a win. I think his world's performance, if he does well, could push him up. But at the minute, I think again he's suffering from not having that longevity.
Yeah, I think that's a good analysis, and I'll give you 2 reasons why I haven't put Aidan in my honourable mentions. The first is in solidarity with you, because obviously, he did do quite the action in Keatoning your sub 4 single, which I just can't be having that, really.
Yeah.
And
I wasn't going to be the one to bring that up.
It's not honourable, and how can he be in my honourable mentions? If that's the case. The other reason is that if he was in my honourable mentions, then Chris Mills couldn't be, and I have to have Chris Mills in my honourable mentions because he is a very good cuber. He was I'm assuming was high up there in the all-rounding stats, and also 3x3 NR holder for a while, but also a traitor.
Fun fact about Chris as well, he was the second person in the UK to get a sub 10 OH average.
Really? Interesting
after
stuff.
Marcher. Yeah.
So, great cuber, great guy, but also a traitor to the UK.
Yes.
And therefore we had to discuss, like, can we include him in the rankings, despite the treachery. And I think the answer was no. But he can get an honourable mention for betraying us.
Yes, that was what that was why he didn't fall into one of my honourable mentions. But yeah, obviously, Chris was a very good all rounder. Had a handful of records in a couple of different events. He had. What actually did he have other than 3x3? He must have had
Rubik's Re-Scramble as well.
Yes, that's true.
So you got to consider these things.
Yeah, And yeah, so my last honourable mention is actually someone that, Ed, you've got in your top 10. That is quite similar to Chris in my mind. He's been very good at 3x3 for a while now. He was the UK champion in 2019. He's been very close to top 10 for Summer Ranks and Kinch. Has had UK NRs in 3x3, in Scube, in Square One, in 2x2, and that person is George Scoley. So, yeah, what do you think of him, Ed? I know you've got him in your top 10.
Well, yeah, look, I think you gave a pretty good, summary there. And I've got him 10th, right? And I think that if you were going purely by stats, he's someone who maybe would miss out on the top 10. But I think that just based on vibes, I had to put him in. Obviously there's NRs in 4 events there. He's got like the 24-hour world record and stuff. There's a lot of other things going on with George, and I think from what I can see, there's a bit of competition nerves that he has issues with, which obviously you get marked down for that, but also you have to consider it because, like, in terms of how good a cuber he is, in terms of what he globals, in terms of his times, and in terms of longevity, like he's still at the top level of certain events. For me,
definitely. Yeah.
He makes the top 10 for me just because just because of vibes, really. And he has great stats, but it's not just that for me. It's also just the vibe. I can't explain that. I was really considering whether that can go in my top 10 because I can't justify it, but he is. Yeah, he's top 10 for me.
And I think that nicely sets out the sort of the running theme that there's going to be the difference between our two lists, because I definitely have focused a little bit more on the measurable stats, hence why George is not in mine, because although he has done a lot for cubing outside of specifically just results, he's got he's been a Rubik's ambassador for a long time. He's obviously, as Ed said, got a lot of Guinness World Records related to cubing, but not in official events. He's been a really big brand ambassador for a while, which is really cool to see. But yeah, doesn't quite have the edge on the stats, I think, that some of the other people I have do.
So I think I need you to just justify all of my top 10 rankings, because that was like the Rubik's ambassador, all of that stuff. That's what I was trying to say, But yeah, no, that's so he's my number 10.
Do we have any other honorable mentions, by the way? Is there anyone we haven't mentioned yet? I think.
Yes, forgot about this guy. So this is someone who you do have in your top 10.
Yes.
I felt I can't leave him out fully of honourable mentions, and that's Oliver Frost. And I think by stats, Oliver Frost has the most UK world records.
He does, yes.
And is that, I think that's mostly 4 and 5 blind, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So, clearly a top level UK cuber. But this was a while ago, and I don't even know who this guy is. So he couldn't make my top 10. But I think based on the stats, obviously he is a top level cuber overall. I mean, having the most world records by quite a bit is of note. So that's why he's made your top 10.
And I do think he's similar to Ryan, obviously, in that his specialty was big blind. So if we are working on that sort of events ranking kind of vibe, then he is going to be lower down for some people, just because big blind was certainly, especially back in the day when he was at his peak, it was a lot less competitive than it is now, and a lot less competitive than most other events as well.
Nice.
So we've heard Ed's number 10 was George. So my number 10 is another person who has been quite high on Kinch and Summer Ranks for a long time, and that is Fabio Schwant. And Fabio, this is where the sort of, when I was talking to Ed about this before we made this video, Ed's idea of the sort of the vibes and the, I hate to use the word, but the aura.
The aura. Fabio has so much aura.
This is the pick that that has kind of Ed's persuaded me in that respect, because Fabio's an incredible cuber. He's had a lot of NRs in Scube. He's had a couple in other events as well, I believe. And yeah, he has been. In fact, he's been very high on Kenshin Sum of Ranks for a long time. He was in the top 2 Sum of Ranks both single and average for quite a long time, especially before the pandemic, with another person that we'll come on to talk about. And he has, especially within the UK, he has a ton of medals across a ton of different events. I think Fabio is the sort of he's the all-rounder's all-rounder, basically. Fabio he's a really, really good cuber all round. So I think he just about makes it into my top 10.
Yeah, that's a good summary. I'm just going to get Fabio's profile up, because I've I put him at 9th. He's my number 9. And it's for a lot of the same reasons, right? Ultimately, he is, a top level all rounder and has been for a while. Some records. You got Scube, fewest moves, and 3 blind. And I think his Scube average at the time was like 7th in the world or something like that.
It was top 10. Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty good. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you've done a pretty good summary there. And the aura. I mean, there's certain cubers that I can't put them above certain people just because of the stats, but the all rounding and the longevity there. I think
longevity,
there is a
absolutely.
justification stats based as well for Fabio.
Yeah. So Fabio is your number 9, and my number 9 is LEJ, who this is a prime example of someone who, if this was a top 10 cubers in the world video, would be much higher for me, because he has got, I think it's like nearly 60 NRs he's had in total, which is insane. Like, just if we ignore like European and world records and that, Ellie has been one of the top local UK competitors for a long time. He's for a good few years he was basically untouchable in big cubes, I think. But it's not just big cubes. He's also had NRs in Scube and Megaminx as well. So yeah, I think he's a really, really good at his specialty, but also a really good all rounder, and has been for a while.
Great. So Ellie is later on my list, but I think all those reasons he's top level cuber. So my number 8 is a person who is well known to many members of this channel, and that's Daniel Partridge. So I consider just not including him at all, just to annoy him. But I think based on the stats I have to, there's no real justification for not. He's the UK's best all rounder right now, I think.
Yeah, undoubtedly.
It's fair to say, and has been for a while, to be honest. Post COVID, like he went up super fast and then has just stayed at the top. Obviously, there's 2 European records. He's had the pleasure of preventing me from getting a single Pyraminx national record.
We know how it feels.
But I note that you haven't not included him in solidarity like I did with Aiden. So
no, I've put it. I've put Daniel higher up. So
yeah. But yeah. So at the end of the day, you all know who Daniel Partridge is. Let's not beat around the bush here. I mean, he got the first, sub 1 Pyraminx average. So how can I not put in my top 10?
True. This is true. Yeah,
it's true. Verifiable fact, actually. So yeah, no, I mean, yeah, there's a lot to say about Daniel. I'm sure you'll bring up some more points, but in terms of all rounding post COVID, and at the moment, like he is at the top level. I don't know what was. Has he been like top 20 in the world for Kinch or some ranks or something like that? Like really, really high up there.
He's certainly been up there. Yeah, I can't remember exactly, but he's right up there.
Yeah. So he makes my top 10 list, unfortunately.
Yeah, and then my number 8 is someone we've already talked about, is Oliver Frost. And then again, this is where the stats really work in his favor, I think, because he's had 8 world records, and the next best UK person has had 3. So he's had nearly 3 times more world records than anyone else from the UK. And I think that even though it is in big blind, I think that's insanely impressive. And a lot of people don't remember that because, they know him as being, good in big blind, but they don't realize how good he was. He had 5 consecutive 4-blind world record singles, one of which was 20. I think it was a 202. Was his last 4-blind world record single, and that stood as the UK NR for about 8 years, which I think it was pretty much one of our longest standing ever NRs. And yeah, he's just insane. And he's, as I mentioned about Chris Wall earlier, he's another one of the 4 UK people to ever get a world podium. He, back in, when was it? Those Euros. Yeah, so back in 2017, he came second in 5-blind. So, yeah, not only has he had world records, he's also had world's podiums. And he is also, if I can find it, yep, he came 3rd in 3-blind at Euros 2014 as well. So he's pretty much got all the major achievements. He's got podiums, he's got world records, and he's not much of an all-rounder, but I think his peak stats really push him up on my list.
I think that's reasonable, to be fair, because I feel like if you've got world records and world championship podiums, like you were just one of the best in the world at that event. Like there's no luck there, there's no one-off stuff, like you were.
Absolutely. And especially when you're capable of beating your own world records multiple times in a row.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. Great. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so next we go on to my number 7, and that's Cham J. Chambers. So Cham is notable for 2 reasons, in my view. The first is clock achievements, and the second is they're all rounding.
Yeah.
So I think I'll start with clock because there's 2 world records there, and I think the stats you can't just look at the stats to understand how good they were and are at clock. Because in terms of like at home average in the flip era, they were miles ahead of anyone, and in their world record average, like that was a big jump. And then there was the average where they got like 2, was it 2 or 3 like solves below the world record single. And yeah, that was there was a world record average and world record single in there, but there's a lot that goes behind that. And I think you can look at that in 2 ways that I guess cancel each other out a little bit, but still push them up higher than the stats would otherwise show. And that's A, they were like super good, super like high above everyone else in global, but B, they couldn't perform that in competition. And it seems strange saying that where they got like a world record that was so far ahead of anything else, but that just shows how far ahead they were in terms of global. So and then the other thing is the all rounding. So Cham on the stats, they've got 116 golds, 103 silvers, 106 bronze medals, and I think they're like 2nd, 3rd for Kinch and Summer ranks. Something like that.
Currently number 1 UK Summer rank single.
Wow. See, there we are. And I think you've got them higher on this just for a lot
Yeah,
of reasons.
I've put Cham one place higher.
Yeah.
But
So
my number seven is Alex Lau, and I know you've put Alex Lau quite a bit higher.
yeah.
But yeah, again, I think this was a weird one because this is I have so much like respect for Alex Lau, obviously. So if it felt it was this is where it gets so hard in the list to try and rank all of these people from here on up. So if it felt so weird putting Alex this low in a way,
Yeah.
because he was 2014 European champion in 3x3. He had 3 European record averages, 2 of which were consecutive, and has been top 3 in the world for both single and average a couple of different times. Was, I believe, the first or second European competitor to get an official sub 6. And yeah, also a really random point that doesn't really fit in with any other category, but it's something I noticed. Alex Lau is the only UK competitor that got a name drop in Noah and Dylan's top 10 world cubers video. So I think that must count for something.
I think it does count for something on my rankings.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll talk about that later. But yeah, obviously, yeah.
And then, as I said, at number 6, I've got Cham. And yeah, two world records, 2 ERs. And something I did want to mention, their first world record was a 3:56 clock average. And this was when they were still using flip. And this actually beat a world record that was set with a no flip method. It was before them, it was Caleb Trailford with like a 3.7, 3.8 something average. And I don't think it was proper 7 sim then. I think it was like Sheeran or some kind of no flip method.
He used some method.
But yeah, the fact that a new method that like a new style of method that has since gone on to prove even better for clock than flip was then beaten with flip again. I think that speaks volumes to how good Cham was and could be, certainly. And yeah, obviously, Ed, you mentioned the infamous average where they started off with a 2:77 world record single. It was their other world record. And then on the second solve got a 2.8, which was also sub the previous world record.
Yeah.
And then on the third solve, obviously you'd expect the nerves to start sinking in, and that's when they got a 6. But then on the fourth solve, they got a 2.87, which, or was it a 2.89 maybe? And the previous world record had been a 2.87. So 3 separate times out of the first 4 in one average that were within a tenth of a second of the previous world record single is insane. And I think it was almost somewhat inevitable, especially with an event like clock, that the last solve was a 6 again, because yeah, it was like you said, the nerves really got to them.
Yeah,
it was so sad, but at the same time, it was like one of the weirdest things I think that's ever happened in cubing. There are so few instances of people getting a world record single in a round, and then another solve that was also sub the previous world record. I know, obviously, the classic example is Stanley Chappell's 5 blind mean world record, where every solve was sub the previous world record single. But yeah, stuff like that is so rare, and I think that does count for a lot. And also, like you mentioned as well, Cham's a really good example of someone like that old phrase that goes, "A jack of all trades is better than a master of." What is it? No, jack of all trades but master of none is always better than a master of one, or something like that. I can't really remember,
yeah,
but
I think it's the other way around. But I get your point.
Maybe.
But I think another thing worth mentioning with Cham is they've got national.
But Cham's got both, right? That's the point. Cham's got both these things. Yeah,
got national records in clock post the transition to flip to no
yes.
flip, and I think you see with a lot of cubers, and I bring up Drew Brads as a great example of this.
So I knew you were going to say that. Yeah,
so dominant with top first, and then when we moved over to V first as the kind of dominant Pyraminx method, I don't think he has really done anything notable with that.
He kind of quit after that, didn't he?
Yeah, pretty much. And that does. I'm not one of these people who's like, that takes away from his legacy at all. But I think that I'm number one Drew Brad's fan, right? But the point is, that like there are a lot of people out there who'd be like, yeah, Drew Brad's like he's not the best Pyraminxer of all time because of that. I don't think that's true. But
no, I agree with you.
But I think it would have been very easy for Chan to like keep using flip or basically, but the point is
absolutely
that he's made that change, which a lot of Cubers don't, and then also being the best in a country who's now very competitive at clock post that, and I think that adds to it in terms of the clock legacy.
I definitely agree. I think
it wasn't just they were the best at flip. It was they're the best at flip and also just really good at clock in general.
They're one of the best at clock. Yeah, I think that shows really good versatility, which again is kind of reflected again in their all rounding abilities as well, like you said. So yeah.
But yeah, right. Where are we up to now?
Your number 6.
My number.
I think we've done my number 6. Yours.
Right. So my number 6 is LEJ, and I think for me, it's just the longevity really, and how far ahead he was at 4, 5, 6, and 7, right? But also really good at other events, like in terms of all rounding. I think Scube is one that he was really good at, and there's some other random ones, right? But like, I think in terms of the amount of NRs and how he's still even now, got NRs for 7x7 and I don't know some other thing, but like it's judging by like how much he competes and stuff. I think there's just, the point is like he's still at the top level of all of these big cubes, even when people are really focusing on it. And I think the how far ahead he was in his peak and the longevity even now for me really pushes him up. And
I get
that all-rounding point as well. He's not like one of the best all-rounders ever, but it's not like some of these other guys who are like really good at a few events, but like no all-rounding whatsoever. Like he does have some all-rounding stuff.
He definitely does. Yeah, he actually has 59 records in total, which is the 5th most of any UK competitor.
Yeah, so I think for me that kind of pushes him up a bit. And I think that the main thing for me is the longevity even now. But I think like the amount of records and stuff, we've already talked about that. I think I just like rank it a bit differently, but yeah.
And he doesn't compete very much these days. He only goes to a handful of comps, but he's still, still now setting like insane records. His 5x5 average from UKC 24 5x5 finals was insane. It was like NR by nearly 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And to the point where even he was like shocked that he got something that good.
And I think in the last UKC he won 5x5 and 6x6. And then came third and 7x7 because he got a pop, which I judged. So I guess I'm not. We're bad luck stuff there going on. But the point is, right, like obviously I think it sometimes can seem like he's losing his grip a bit on these big events. But I don't think that's necessarily, true just yet. And for me, that's kind of pushes him up a bit for me.
Yeah, that may just be a result of him not competing as much these days. Yeah,
I mean, obviously it's difficult to tell. You can't make any definitive statements on that. But I think,
of course,
yeah. I don't want to come out here and be like, oh yeah, he's definitely like still way better than everyone else, but.
Absolutely.
I think there's an argument to be made.
Yeah. Right. On to our top 5s then. My number 5 pick again is someone we've already talked about. Is indeed Daniel Partridge, and I really do think this is again. Obviously, Daniel Partridge is a 2022 ID, so he's only been competing for about 3 years, just over that. And the fact that he's improved as quickly as he has I think that really pushes him up the rankings for me, because not like, if you just look at his current stats, like obviously he does really well. He's got loads of UKC podiums, 2 ERs, one of which was second in the world at the time.
Yeah.
He's like the best UK all-rounder right now, and probably of all time. But if you just look at those in isolation, it's impressive. But then if you compare it to how quickly he's improved at certain things, especially big cubes, he's really taken off in like the last year or so. I think that's really insane, and that's a testament to just how good he is at cubing in general. The fact that he can just pick something, an event, whether it's Pyraminx or whether it's, learning like random comms in blind, or whether it's learning big cubes and getting better at that, then the fact that he can just choose to do that and become so good so quickly is a testament to how just good he is at improving. And I value that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, another thing I don't think we mentioned about Daniel, he won Pyraminx round 1 at Euros 2024, which at the time was the biggest Pyraminx round in history.
That's
so that really
that's a true fact.
Yeah.
I mean, I have some things to say about that, but we'll everyone had different scrambles. Let's just remember, but not
this
to
is true.
Anything.
It's true.
But I think, yeah, but no, I agree with Daniel. Like the stats, ultimately, like he is, a top level cuber. Like he's, UK's best all rounder right now by quite a bit, and and it is like you say, like he'll just decide like, I want to be good at this event. Like with big cubes, then it's just like, oh yeah, I'm just like the national record holder now. It's like, okay, bro.
Yeah.
But and I say all these things, I don't, but it's annoying because of Pyraminx and stuff. But the other thing to mention is like, ever since he started as like cubing as well, like he's super active in the community, like very like just a great guy really. And I feel like I should mention that because of how much I like trash talking on this video.
Yeah.
But
and I would echo that. By the way, I would echo that about Aiden as well. Even though I may have slightly holding a grudge about that 3x3 single, but it's whatever. Aiden's great, and so is Daniel. You're absolutely right.
I mean, really, the not to like glaze the UK cubing community, but
all of these people that we're talking about are so nice, and I don't know about you, but I've had the pleasure of meeting pretty much all of them, and certainly speaking to them. I think Alex Lau and Oliver Frost are the only two people we've talked about that I haven't met, but everyone else has just been great, and it's really great to know that like these are the people that are the top UK cubers of all time. That we're really lucky in the UK, I think, with that.
Wow, that got a little bit off topic there, but no, it's valid. That's like super correct. But yeah, so where are we up? We're up to my
number 5. We're in the top 5.
Number 5. So my number 5 is Brendan Vallance. Now, before I go into my top, my 5 to 2. This was like so hard for me. Like I could justify any of my 5, 4, 3, and 2 being on any of the positions. And Brendan Vallance is the hardest one for me to kind of look at. So I'm going to get his stats because there's a lot of things to say. With
Brendan does have a lot of stats, and I totally agree about these top 5, top 4, top 3. So difficult to do. I think we absolutely could make a case for a whole bunch of different lists and still feel like that's pretty reasonable.
Absolutely. So Brendan Vallance, the stats. So we've got 91 national records and 9 European records. I mean, at 91 national records, you are national record farming at the end of the day, and that is something to say. Not all of these national records are like 30-second one-handed single, but so that's an argument that you can make, but I don't think it's a very valid one because there's a lot of the records and the biggest thing for me, right? So there's 2 things to mention. Obviously, he won Worlds. This guy won Worlds, right?
Yes.
at
Overall,
3x3 of
yes.
worlds. This guy was the world champion
Yeah.
in 2009 and
Hmm.
came third in 2015 at 5x5.
Yes.
And I think
Yes.
for me, the 5x5 could even be more impressive because he held the European record 5x5 from basically 2013 to 2015, right? He basically dominated
Hmm.
European 5x5 for 2 years and then went
Yeah.
to the Worlds and podiumed. And I think that for me is could even be more impactful than the Worlds win just because it was in 2009, right? And I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't know how
Absolutely.
competitive things were back in 2009, but you know, probably most people watching this video weren't even born then. So you know,
Mm.
but you know, I think that there's I think it's a very difficult one to rank because it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But the
Brendan is.
results are really impressive.
I would say, yeah, I would say his peak is probably one of, if not the earliest of any of the people we're talking about. I think.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, and I agree. He's again a difficult person to rank. I've got him as my number four. And yeah, his obviously his 3x3 worlds win is
yeah,
very, very much a big part of that. That weighs a lot for me. And it's worth saying as well that average that he won with was a 10.7 average, and that was third in the world at the time. That was obviously NR, the UK NR at the time. And yeah, third in the world in world's finals is insane. Because if you imagine that today, that's the equivalent of whoever ex competitor getting like a 4.4 average in world's finals. Which,
that is
when you put it like
comparison.
that,
Yeah, like
it's
that's
mental.
crazy.
That is pretty much what it was the equivalent for the time. And yeah, of course, a second world's podium, one of only two UK competitors to get multiple world's podiums. And yeah, like you said, he's got the longevity. That's 6 years apart,
Yeah,
and in different events. Like 3x3 and 5x5 are not so dissimilar, but to get it in different events 6 years apart is insane. He also has 3 Euros podiums, and almost twice as many ERs as the next UK competitor has. So yeah, he's got 100 records in total, which is the second most of any UK competitor. And yeah, I just think he's if we think back to the sort of events tier list, like his 3x3 and 5x5 and the other events he's had NRs in are all very competitive. Even back in the day, back in 2009, 3x3 was still the most competitive event. So I think you really can't knock him for that.
absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a good. And again, like this is it's hard to rank at this stage, but I think I think we both put him at similar kind of rankings in terms of like really high up, but not quite the best.
Yeah, and again, possibly that's just the recency bias again coming into it because
Yeah,
he very much had his peak a lot earlier than some of the other people we're talking about.
yeah, but then I think you have to balance recency bias with like it being less competitive back in the day.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah. So and that's something that I've considered for this ranking. At number 4, I've put someone who you've already put, and that is Alexander Lau.
Yes.
So I'll be honest, when I was first making this ranking, I assumed that like just based on vibe, like just going into it, like not having looked at any of the stats or anything, I was like Alexander Lau's probably first, right? Like just based on like how people talk about him and stuff, you know what I mean? And I think that it's like your point about him being, you know, the only UK person mentioned in Noah and Dylan's video. Like he has that kind of he's well known, you know.
Yeah, he's well known outside the UK, which I think is
Yeah,
is massive. Yeah.
and I think that from my perspective, he is the best UK 3x3 of all time, right? but I think that's all he is.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
For me, he's quite clear. Like I don't think anyone else in 3x3 rivals him. Like even though Brendan won Worlds, I think that Alexander winning Euros in 2014 is a bigger achievement, and to be at the top level 3x3 5 years later, like that is a bigger achievement than winning in 2009. But I think that the issue is like there was no all-rounding there was kind of nothing else. It was just he was the best at 3x3, for a good few years and then just left, right? So for me, I was kind of thinking like, how am I going to justify not putting him first, but he has kind of moved down my ranking a bit as I look at the stats. But I think it's just a question of like, where do you rank the best UK 3x3er of all time? How much do you value all rounding? How much do you do all this other stuff? And for me, I think, I guess because I value that European Championship European Championship win in 2014 so highly, and all of like the European records and stuff, like that's why I've ranked him so high, even though there's not really much else going on in terms of his achievements. So that's my number 4.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting that we both have at number 4 a 3x3 win at a major, but they're different people. You value the more recent and arguably more competitive win, whereas I value the Worlds win over the Euros win, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
And the other thing to mention about Alex is, I would say, I don't know if people might disagree with this, but I'd say he was probably the first like world-class Roux user. And I think he like proved that it was possible to be like world-class with Roux. And, obviously since then we've had a ton of Roux world records in OH, and also people like Sean Patrick Villanueva coming second at Worlds 2019 using Roux. So I think in that respect, Alex really did open the door for Roux users. So I think that's another thing in his favour.
That's it. I think we talked about at the start, didn't we, about mentioning like method development and all that kind of stuff. And it's not that he's developed it, but there is a point of if you're doing something unique, if you're kind of doing that, then you can.
I would call him a pioneer. I would call him a pioneer.
That's a good way of putting it, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely. So
do
you want
top
to do your
3? These now we have, I believe we have the same top 3 people, but a couple of them are in switched positions.
Yeah, so our 2 and 3 are switched.
Yes.
So I don't know how we want to do this.
I think you go first for your third.
Okay, I'll go first for my third. So my third is Daniel Shepherd. And again, I'm going to have to get up his stats because there's a lot. There
is a lot.
So Daniel Shepherd, I'm assuming, is the person with the UK most world podiums.
Correct. Yes.
And that is,
he has had 5 in total.
In 2011, he got 4 world podiums. That is a lot of world podiums for one competition.
It is insane.
And that included a winning clock.
It did, yes.
Second in fewest moves, and then third in 5 and multi.
Yeah. And you could argue that those are, relatively similar events, at least 5 blind and multi.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this is worlds.
Yeah. I think my argument there would be like they're like lower tier events, but also it is worlds. And it's 4 events. Like that is, and then 2 years later he came third in clock. So there's the clock, and I think he won clock like a certain amount of, like for UKC it was like a clock win in like 2010. Okay, 2011 for some reason he didn't, but 2012 podium in 13, win in 14, win in 15, win in 16, podium in 18. Like there's there's dominance in certain events there.
And he has those kind of podiums as well in Euros as well. 2 Euros clock podiums and a multi podium as well. So he's good at majors.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's, in terms of all rounding, like he is one of the best. I think his last PR was in like 2019 or something, and when I
he hasn't
looked
really competed much post pandemic.
a few months ago, he was still like top 10 at the Kinch or something. Like there's he what it like is really like a really top level all rounder.
I think in terms of all rounding, he probably has the biggest longevity of any UK cuber.
Yeah,
and obviously as well, his nickname is Kinch 2002. I think he invented the Kinch all rounding system.
Yeah,
which obviously we've been using to talk about quite a few different people in this.
We're using his own ranking to talk about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and then there's world records. There's 2 4x4 blindfolded singles, 1 5 blind. So he's well rounded. In terms of records, podiums, all round. Like it's very complete profile. And then you can also consider the contribution to UK cubing in terms of being a delegate for so long, organising all these competitions. And
this is true. This is something we've not actually talked about yet, because he's the only person on this list, other than Ryan, who we mentioned, who's been a delegate. And obviously Ryan's only been a delegate quite recently, but Daniel Shepherd was a delegate for several years, and really pushed the UK cubing scene as a whole to be a lot bigger than it was before.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, so that's my kind of justification for third. Just like super well-rounded in like every possible stat you can want. So
yeah, and there's one more very unique stat that I'll talk about when I come on to my mention of him, who I have him second. But the person who I have in third is Harry Savage, and Harry's a really interesting one, because in my notes document that I've been referring to, I don't have that many points next to Harry's name, whereas I have quite a lot of points next to the other people's names. It is partly a vibes ranking. I know Harry, we went to the same uni. We ran our cubing society there for a couple of years. Harry is the person who was right up there with Fabio in terms of sum of ranks and Kinch in the UK for a long time. They were both quite a way ahead of everyone else for quite a while, right up until the pandemic. Yeah, he was, and a lot of that time he was just edging out Fabio as the number one. He has had a world record. He had the 17 FMC single, which this is a slight tangent about FMC, but two-thirds of all possible Rubik's Cube scrambles have an optimal move count of 18, and about a third of them have an optimal move count of 17. So his jump from an 18 world record to the first 17, that is, I think, in my mind, a really big thing, because we're getting into like proper optimal territory here, you could say. It's quite a nerdy way of explaining it, but I think that's his world record. I think was actually really significant.
Yeah.
He's also had Euros podium, an absolute ton of medals and NRs. I'm going to get the stats up now. So in terms of the sum of medals, he is in top 10 for most total medals in the UK with 184. He obviously, when sorted by world record first, he's one of only a handful of UK competitors to have had a world record, and that really says a lot. And even now, in the post-pandemic era, he's still currently ranked 6th for Kinch and is 5th for sum of ranks averaged. So even now, when he's not competing as much, a bit like Ellie we talked about earlier, he's still able to sort of maintain that really, really good all-rounding status. So I think, yeah, again, like Ellie, he's got longevity on his side a lot. And yeah, I think kind of just on vibes as well, he's just a really, really good cuber. And yeah, that's enough for top 3 for me, to be honest.
Perfect. Yeah. So I guess now it's kind of time to talk about our second choices. Go like basically to say why we've picked one over the other, and it's because I think based on the descriptions we just given, like it's quite equal, right? Like they both have like really great achievements, but I think it's just
you can see why we've had a hard time ranking these people.
But I think so. I'll go first in this in terms of the reasons I kind of put Harry number 2, and so the first is just the recency bias, if you like. Like I think Harry is, if I look at so championship podiums, right? In the UK Championship 2018, he podiumed in 9 events. And in 2016 there was 6, 2017 6, 2018 9, 2019 6, and Kinch, Daniel Shepherd, he's done the same thing, but like less recent. And for me, I kind of think that it is quite a big difference in terms of competitiveness.
Absolutely.
And I think also just vibes. In terms of how I guess the longevity of how long he was at like the top of some of Ranks and Kinch in a competitive era, and still doing it now. Like the stats don't really show it now, but like there's still loads of events where he's kind of there and thereabouts, if you like.
Definitely.
There's not a kind of there's no fall off here. Like he's still a really good cuber and has been for the last like 10 years. And obviously Kinch has that same longevity, but for me, I kind of look at the timeline and just think that in terms of like UK performance, like it's more impressive the more recent results. But it's very close, and it's valuing different things, and
I totally get that.
Yeah.
And there's another really random fact I know off the top of my head about Harry. At UKC 2023, so the second UKC after the pandemic, there is a stat called competition Kinch, which is like Kinch ranks, but only takes into account the results of one competition. So you can use it as an alternative way of saying, who was the best overall at this competition. And in UKC 2023, a comp with every event, and this doesn't include FMC, because FMC was a separate comp. So every event other than FMC, which is Harry's speciality, he came second overall in competition Kinch at UKC 2023 out of about 500 people. And I think FMC was his only podium that year. He didn't get any other podiums, but he was still so consistent all round that he was second best Kinch score of anyone at that comp, which is insane.
That is a really great stat, because it's kind of, I think I was talking a bit about like how the stats post-COVID don't necessarily show how good he's been post-COVID. And that is partly a vibes thing, but also you've got the stats there to kind of back it up a bit in terms of, he performs on in the top kind of biggest stages at the UKC, and in terms of all rounding is still doing it now. So that's a great stat to back up my my kind of ranking on that.
Yeah. And that's one of the ones as well that is kind of hard to look up. Like, we've got a lot of just almost raw stats, you could call them, like current summer ranks, current Kinch, most medals of all time now. Like, a lot of them don't do justice to, like, I mean, if you took, say, Harry at 2018, then if you looked at all of the summer ranks and the Kinch and the most medals back then, I think not only would he still be really high up, but he, if anything, be higher up. So, yeah. Yeah, so I have Daniel Shepherd as my number 2. And I think the main thing that puts him over Harry for me is this one specific stat that I mentioned before. It's called a Moller's membership. And it's another all-rounding stat, but it's a different way of ranking, of taking into account sort of lots of different all-rounding type achievements. And I think it's really interesting. So the way it works is there are 6 tiers. There's bronze, silver, and gold, and then there's platinum, opal, and diamond, which is the highest. Now, only 3 people have achieved diamond. Those people are Stanley Chappell, Evan Liu, and Jan Ben Lager. And Daniel Shepherd has achieved an opal tier, which is obviously extremely impressive. But I think it's even more impressive that he's the only UK competitor to have got higher than gold. So he's got opal. No other UK competitor's got platinum. The next best UK competitor has gold. And I think that shows that he's, in terms of all rounding, he's like even further ahead still than a lot of people were thinking. So the way it works is for bronze, you need just a result in every event, which is not too difficult to get. And then you gain one more ranking every time you complete one of the following things, which is averages in all cited events, means in FMC and blind, a world championship podium or a world record, and a win in every event. And winning in every event is not something we've talked about because it's a harder stat to find. But the only thing that Daniel Shepherd is missing out of those is 4 blind and 5 blind means. So he's got singles and averages in every cited event. He also has 3 blind and FMC means. He has world championship podiums. He has a world record. He's had multiple world records, and he's won every single event at some point in time. And compared to certainly the next UK competitors, they're missing at least 2 extra of those. So I think for me that is really, really impressive, and that just about puts him ahead of Harry for me.
It's an interesting stat to be bringing up Moller's memberships. I completely like that. That is a rogue one, to be fair.
It is.
I think it does. And I guess if we're like, so is that he's like a 4 and 5 blind mean away from the toppest top level.
Yeah,
and
he's
ultimately
4 and 5 blind means away from
record holder in those events. Like he could get a mean.
Yeah, he definitely could have done. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, that's a valid thing. I just want to like mention one thing that I forgot to mention before, which was it's for me it's also like the types of events that they're good at. So like Harry has a UKC 3x3 podium.
Yeah, that's true.
And Daniel doesn't really have any like major 3x3 kind of achievements, I guess. So if we're thinking like rankings of events as well, that's
and also I mentioned Harry had a Euros podium. He came 3rd in Pira in 2018. So that's also a super competitive event.
That's like Pyraminx is like the next tier down, and I think that's worth mentioning. But then I think with Daniel, you've got a kind of thing where like you've got the tier up because it's the World Championships, but tiers down because it's different events. So it's just
absolutely.
kind of how are you weighting that? But I think it kind of shows like we've got these guys 2nd, 3rd, and like it kind of could go either way, but either way they're in the top 3.
Absolutely,
So
I think there's every chance we've been.
One is like not good because we're trying to argue that either's second,
Yeah, and I think there's every chance we've been a little bit hypocritical with how we're saying like, oh yeah, what do we value more, recency bias or like worlds versus Euros or records versus podiums or whatever. We've probably contradicted ourselves quite a few times.
Ultimately, the list is vibes based, and I'm trying to post-talk to justify that.
Absolutely.
So,
definitely.
but I think regardless, vibes, stats, no matter what way you wanna talk about it, our number one is locked in.
Yep, we're both agreed.
Had so many thoughts and discussions about who am I going to put in my top 10, how these people will be ranked. First place, never even a question for me. And I assume that's similar for you. It's just not something that's really not something that's up for debate, but I think it's pretty clear who.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I sat down to think about my list, very quickly I got a top 7, and I also pretty soon, just looking at the collection of stats, I was like, I can't justify putting anyone above this person. I think that was what I thought when I was doing it.
Yeah. So do we want to announce the best UK Cuba of all time?
I think we're agreed. Yeah, the greatest UK Cuba of all time is Rob Yao, in our opinion. But I think we have a solid opinion.
So
should we run through the stats?
Yeah, let's
go. Let's go.
Get the stats going. 130 NRs.
Yep, most of any UK competitor. Number 1.
But that doesn't necessarily mean just from that. Most NRs. But I think if you look at the championship podiums, it takes you a while to scroll down.
Yeah.
I was talking about Harry's kind of dominant performance over a few years, mainly in 2018. Robert Yao has done this every year since 2010. There's a lot of wind in there, and
he has not only the most records of any UK competitor, but the most medals. In total, he's got 580 medals. 580. That is 150 more than the second best person. He also has the most gold medals. He has 243 golds, which is 110 more than the next best person. He is, like you said as well, 132 records, 30 more than the next best person.
Yeah.
He also has been top 10 SOR and Kinch for ages. Is not anymore, I don't think, but was for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So he's definitely got longevity. 2 ERs, 3 Euros podiums, like you said, back from starting in 2012, and his latest one was 2018. So he's got that consistency as well in majors performance. And I think one of the biggest things for me as well is obviously tons of work in method development. And this is what we were saying earlier. There's not that many other UK competitors that this applies to, but even in terms, if we're talking about just method development for any cubers in the world, I would argue Rob Yao is top 5, if not even more than that.
Absolutely.
The Yao method for big cubes has been so influential. Back in the late 2000s, he was coming up with different techniques for this, and it was very highly developed. And obviously it took off for 4x4 at the start of the 2010s, and has sort of 5x5 a bit after that, and is very recently coming into its own on 6 and 7 as well. People like Kieran Behan have pushed the method a lot and proved that it can be really good. Sung-Hyuk Nam was the first person to get a world record with Yao in a big cube. I'm not counting 4x4 as a big cube. And I remember the day that happened. Obviously the UKCA Discord was going crazy because it was Nam's first world record, and it was Yao on 6x6. And there was one message that Rob sent, and it just said, "Finally." And I think that really shows that really shows just the longevity as well, and the influence of his method development, I think.
Yeah. And I think in every kind of stat that we've talked about, he is just like really good. So like in terms of like events, that he's good at, they're all like top tier ones. Like he's got 3x3 podiums. He's got a couple of UKC 3x3 wins.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like 2x2, 4x4, 5, 6, 7. It's all of those. And I just think in terms of everything we've looked at today, he hits it really. And then the method development point is just another, another big one.
I think what I realized when I was looking through each of the stats individually, at some point in time, Rob was right at the top for pretty much everything. So we looked at sum of ranks, he was high up for that. We looked at Kinch, he was high up for that. We looked at the most records, he was at the top for that. We looked at the most medals, he was at the top for that. We looked at world's podiums, we've looked at Euros podiums, he's got those. We've looked at European records, he's got those. And then there's the more abstract stuff like method development as well. He's done that. He's another fun fact about Rob, he has the sort of unofficial world record for the longest time to get sub 8 3x3 average, which again I was at the comp where he finally got that back in, I think it was like 2013. He got like an 8.2 3x3 average, which obviously was insane at the time. It was like probably an NR, I think, at the time. And it wasn't until like 2023, it was Guildford Autumn 2023, he got a 7.9, I think it was 7.98 3x3 average, where like he counted a high 8 in it as well. And I remember going up to him after that, and he was just like so relieved that it had finally happened after so long. But that I don't think I could count the number of Cubers who, if they'd been going for something like 3x3 average for that long and not got it, like probably would have stopped over the pandemic and like moved on or something. But Rob didn't. He kept going. He came back after the pandemic, and he's still getting those, like, not just any PRs, like 3x3 average. He's still doing as well as he's ever done. And I think that says a lot.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't think I've got really anything else to add on that. Like, that was a good, you explained everything pretty well. I mean, yeah, like that's our ranking.
Yeah.
So I think what we'll do is we'll have a quick break, and then we'll cut to some like post ranking thoughts probably. But yeah, there we are.
Cool. Back on the bevs. Oh, nice.
How do you think that went?
I think that was solid. I think we got, certainly we like, I think I said everything that I could have thought of, or you said everything. I think, yeah, collectively we said everything that we could have thought of. I think
so. There's like I think the thing is, like, it's just like a discussion piece, and we said everything that we needed to.
Yeah.
And people will have their own thoughts if they actually watch the video, and we've given enough to kind of go off there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah. So I don't know what you want to do in terms of post thoughts. Like, was there anything I guess, like the way the video, how do you want the video to go?
I think it's probably worth reiterating that, like, we're not sort of strictly defining anything really. Like,
yeah,
we don't have like a metric system where we've said, okay, a world record is worth this many points, or like most medals is worth this many points, and we're tallying everything up. Like, we're not doing that. We're using the stats, but we're not like we're working on the vibes of the stats.
Yeah. I think that's right. That's worth discussing. That's worth like re-saying. And yeah, I think then we can just like, I guess, kind of go through the rankings again, but like quick, and like how we like just more general thoughts about it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
more kind of not talking about individuals, but like parts of the ranking. Like I'll talk about my 2 to 5 and how we ranked Alex Lau and that kind of thing. Like we'll just yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Right. Okay. So back on. Once you've finished with the bevs.
Yeah, hang on. I've closed the document. I need to open it up again.
Wow, look at this. The Rubik's disconnected. When I bought this cube, I bought it from the Cubicle, and I got in conjunction a set of like really nice bright stickers.
Right. Yeah.
Didn't put them on for like 2 years. And then like a week ago, I was like, okay, I'm gonna put them on. I put them on. It doesn't work. Like what I've done. So I'm gonna have to like troubleshoot it at some point.
Oh, that's great.
But just like I've charged it up and it won't connect.
Oh my god.
So you know, there we are. Look at these. Look at that. Look how nice and bright they are. This would not be looking like this before. They would be looking like trash.
I know. I'm a sucker for bright stickers. I love bright stickers. Yeah.
Yeah.
My go-to sticker scheme is full brights, but with aqua instead of blue.
That's I see. I do know your cubes. They're pretty good in terms of the stickering. Like they're, you can't fault them. They're bright. I think they fit with you and your personality.
Nice. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I find like restickering cubes so therapeutic.
I can't lie. I did not find restickering this therapeutic. I was like, because I think like on the first one I made like you can see like there's like it's off a bit. It's like on not quite.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've had the stickers for 2 years and I've my first one I've done it wrong. But, listen, if I need anyone to resticker my cubes, which I can't see happening because I don't use stickers, but if I do,
I was gonna say I'm happy. I mean, like, I use stickered cubes for multi, right?
Yeah.
I have 25 RS3M 2020s in black that I've restickered. Like the white, the green, and the yellow are all like the regular like bright shades, but the factory stickers that they come with, the orange, the blue, and the red are like way too dark. So I think the last Christmas or something I got a handful more multi cubes, and like 2 or 3 days after I just sat down and spent like the whole day restickering them. Just because it was fun.
That does sound fun. Like to have like that many cubes and be restickering them. Like that sounds fun. Yeah. Yeah.
I was peeling off the old stickers.
I can understand that.
I was peeling off the old stickers and sticking them on an A4 sheet of paper, and I was like overlapping them a tiny bit each time, and I used the whole sheet.
Oh yeah.
It was covered in stickers.
Oh yeah.
And it looked really cool. To be fair, it looked quite cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we've got like a pretty good plan for like post discussion thoughts, just like some general.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll reiterate like that the rankings aren't anything. They're not like they're just our thoughts.
Yeah. Do we want to go top down this time or bottom up again like we did before?
What?
Do we want to go top down, as in like 1 to 10?
Oh yeah, because you haven't done your rankings. You've done it the other way. I've got obviously I've got 10. We've got 10 to 1. That's down. But yeah.
Well, since we started with like honourable mentions and then 10 to 1, should we go 1 to 10?
Yeah, I think so because we've got the 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s like fresh in our minds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we give some further thoughts on that, and then we'll go back and be like, oh, look at all these silly things
Yeah.
we were saying at the start of the video.
I'm just gonna check actually, because I think are our top 7 the same but in different orders?
No, because of Daniel Partridge.
Oh yeah.
Our top
Okay.
8 are. No, they're not because of Ellie.
Yeah.
So they're actually just not.
Yeah, no, they're not. Okay, but they're pretty similar.
Yeah.
Like I think for me, I think the top 7, like 7 to 8 is where, like top 7 is like top tier realistically.
Yeah.
For me. So because I remember it must have been ages ago, but like it was after a comp day. I was walking to somewhere and I was chatting to Joe Briggs, and we actually got onto like top 10 UK cubers of all time.
Yeah.
And he said to me, the top 5 are all pre-pandemic. And he said, who do you think they are? And I was like, I can probably guess. And I guessed, and it was Rob, Daniel, Harry, Brendan, and Alex. So
yeah,
I think those 2, and like within the last year, Daniel Partridge and Cham have like got almost basically to that level, I would say.
Yeah.
So
I think so. See, I think that's, maybe
yeah, top 7 for me is set.
See, I might rank Cham higher. Maybe Ellie 7th and Cham 6th. If I was to do,
I've got Cham 6th, yeah.
But so I put Cham 7, Ellie 6.
Mm-hmm.
I think yeah. I think the thing is, like, when you get to this point, like, there's so much, you know, like, just depending on what you're looking at, really.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because like in the Noah and Dylan video, they started with the presumption that Max was number 2 and Felix was number 1, and obviously I don't disagree with that, but like they had those obvious picks already, and we maybe with Rob, but we kind of didn't. I don't think
even Rob isn't as obvious as Felix.
No. So no, definitely not.
And then after that, I think I could argue Brendan, Alex, Daniel, or Harry second. Like if I put any of those second, I could make a case.
Yeah, same
for them being second.
Absolutely same. Yeah.
You know, and then like realistically, there's a lot of room for like changes in this that like all seem reasonable. I feel like on a world stage you don't get that as much. Like it's not like there's someone who like would be not even honorable mention, but then like someone has them in the top 10. It's like that makes sense. Like it's a bit.
No, definitely. And maybe that's worth a mention when we do the thoughts. Like because we've got such a variety of things to consider. Because it's not just UK level. There's some stuff beyond that.
Yeah,
that's why our lists are so kind of.
You've got a few rankings for other worlds. It is literally it's kind of just the only things you have to think about is like timelines. But in terms of like how you weight worlds, continental, UK, you don't really have to think about any of that because you just don't know continental and national.
Well, because it was like they said, it was one of the first things they said at the start of that video was world's performance isn't everything.
Yeah.
Like there was the assumption that world's performance might be everything. We've got so much more than that.
It's like if world performance was everything, like who would put Chris Wall would be number 1.
Chris Wall number 2.
But anyways, I don't have any intention of cutting this video. I think our discussion can just go in like what we've just done.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
Because like we would just be like saying it all over again, you know. So like I know when I said like we should cut the video, like I did think we would have a discussion about what we were going to say and then do it, but like I think
we kind of just did it, didn't we?
We kind of just did it, you know. So there's no point in doing it again.
Okay, we didn't actually run through the lists though. Should we do that quickly?
Yeah, I think we should do that now.
Okay. So do you if you just do your whole list, then I'll just do my whole list. How about that?
what? So sorry. So what's the point of running through a list into if I like me? What do you want me to say about like the list?
I thought we were just going to say who each rank was.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine.
Should we do that? Yeah.
What?
Yeah. That was it. So
that's
you
fine.
go.
So right. So my 10 was George Scoley. Then 9, Fabio Schwant. I don't think that's how you say it, but
I thought. Wait, hang on. I thought we were going 1 to 10.
Ah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So my number one. Why would we go on to 10? My number one pick is Robert Yao. Number 2, Harry Savage. Number 3, Daniel Shepherd. Number 4, Alex Lau. Number 5, Brendan Vallance. Number 6, L.E.J. Number 7, Cham J. Chambers. Number 8, Daniel Partridge. Number 9, Fabio Schwant. And number 10, George Scoley.
And your honourable mentions? Give them a shout out quick.
My honourable mentions were Oliver Frost, Nicholas Archer, James Alonso, and Chris Mills.
Nice. And then my list, number 1, also Rob Yao. Number 2 was Daniel Shepherd. 3 was Harry Savage. 4 was Brendan Vallance. 5, Daniel Partridge. 6 was Cham. 7 was Alex Lau. 8 was Oliver Frost. 9 was L.E.J. And 10 was Fabio Schwant. And then my honourable mentions were Aidan Granger, Nicholas Archer, Ryan Eckersley, and George Scoley.
Lovely.
And I'm overall, I'm pretty happy with that. I think I know, like when we were talking before this, we kept having like last minute panics and changing our lists.
It's like there's no way this is the right ranking. I need to
it's like
person from first.
Yeah, it's like we said, we could make a case for so many different rankings for any of these people. So I'm relatively happy with what we've come to. I think.
I think based on my discussions, maybe I'd put Cham 6th, Ellie 7th, but I also think there's a lot of arguments for Ellie being like really high ranked. So
yeah. And I spent so long deliberating whether I put Aidan in my top 10 or not. It's a similar thing.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we ended up agreeing on number 1 because I think that's a good conclusion.
Look, I was ready to like fully argue with you about number 1 if it was wrong. Like everything else, like it's like I don't like I agree with what you feel like. You know,
we ended up being pretty similar, yeah.
But like number 1, I was like, no, it has to be Rob Yao.
Yeah, different methods, same conclusion. We had the stats, we had the vibes,
and Rob Yao gets both
clearly. That's really cool. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was that was everything I wanted to put in the video. Really, I think we've gone over the rankings, why we put them, our kind of criteria and stuff. In the fact that there wasn't really any, and there we are. I'll edit it and I'll get it uploaded. I was thinking like, oh, this will be a pain to edit. No, why not upload the whole thing? a few cuts. There'll be a few cuts in there. I'm not gonna
of course. Yeah.
Right. Anyway, I'm going to start recording now.
Nice.